Hey everyone, my name is Kiana and welcome back to my channel. This is very new for me, like this whole format. I don't do sit down videos. I usually do lifestyle and travel content. So please be easy on me. I'm trying my best here. But today we're going to be talking about my experience with anxiety as well as my experience with taking Zoloft or anti-anxiety for the first time. I wrote some notes because my first attempt at filming this video did not go very well. I was speaking, but I felt like I was everywhere and my thoughts were not organized. So I got some notes here to try to keep me on track. We'll see if it does. I might have to edit in some clarifications if needed, but I'm gonna try my best to just keep on a straight line. Disclaimer, I'm not a doctor or a medical professional or mental health anything. I am just a person with anxiety who just happens to take Zoloft. Before we get into why I started taking Zoloft, like what triggered it, any side effects, my experience, I want to talk about what led me to have this much anxiety at the ripe age of 28. So I haven't gone to therapy to discuss like the root of my anxiety. So all of these theories are literally just theories, and I guess it would be the same for if I were to go to therapy, right? But I haven't talked about this with a professional. So if it sounds off base, sorry, but this is my thoughts and my opinions. My childhood was very rocky, very traumatic. There was a lot of moving around going on. I was homeless at one point. I was separated from my primary caregiver. My father wasn't around. There was a lot of alcoholism as well as domestic abuse. It wasn't a very healthy environment for a child, and I feel like in that situation I kind of developed some generalized anxiety. Like I was always worried about something. It wasn't anything like in particular. It was always just, I was always worried that something was going to happen, almost like waiting for the next shoe to drop. And now it was mild in comparison to what my anxiety ramped up to later in life. But that was like elementary school and middle school. In high school, I moved to a different living situation, which was more stable, but the family member that I moved with, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to criticize them too harshly. But since I was a kid, I just knew that me living with this particular family member, it eventually was just gonna lead to a situation where her and I just weren't going to be on speaking terms. During high school, I'm just gonna list off some things that were going on, and I'm not gonna get into any specifics, but I was criticized heavily, always called selfish and inconsiderate. And when you think about it, right, I was between the ages of 14 and 17. Of course I was selfish. Of course I was inconsiderate. I was a child, you know? Like kids only think about themselves. Like, yeah, there's like moments where children will share. Like I was still a nice kid, you know, I shared, I wasn't disrespectful. I was raised to be a respectful human being. But yeah, for the most part, I only worried about myself because that's just how it is as a child. But there was almost like this expectation that I needed to worry about myself. Well, not even that. I shouldn't even worry about myself. There should be no like consideration of me. I should only consider others. And I feel like that kind of developed a lot of people-pleasing tendencies, as well as me always walking around on eggshells, because even when I was just being myself, I was being criticized for being myself. I also don't feel like I was treated fairly with the other child that was in the home. I love that other person, and this has nothing to do with them, but in comparison, like we were 2 years apart and I was the oldest, I never felt like we were treated fairly as far as like, and I hate to sound juvenile, but like chores and the punishments we would get and the criticism that we would get, it was just like completely different. And I also felt like it was more of like a male or a boy versus a female or a girl type situation, you know, like there is a lot of conversations around how Black mothers treat their daughters in comparison to their sons. And that's kind of something that I was dealing with, like that dynamic. And that was very frustrating. It also just caused like a lack of trust. There were things where things would like happen and there was just like this large overreaction. It was just such a like I can't even believe, like sometimes when I think about it, I'm like, I can't believe like these things kind of happened to me. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I was a perfect child, because I was not. There were some things that I definitely did that I knew I wasn't supposed to, and I did it anyway. But there were also some things that happened where I'm like, really? Like one time I got punished for farting. There was a rule to not toot or fart or have flatulence in the living room, in my own home. And I thought this family member was joking. They were not. I got sent to the bathroom like on timeout. I was like 14, 15 years old. Come on. Like it was just ridiculous. I also felt like I was the black sheep of the family. I have this thought that my family and this particular family member feels like family over everything. No matter what they do, no matter what they say, you always support them, you give them your love and your money and your home and blah, 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 blah. And I don't believe that at the end of the day. I do not. I do believe family is important, but if you're gonna be a dick, like I have no reason to support you. Like there are family members that are hurting family members and family members stealing from each other and just doing like these heinous things. And yet I'm supposed to support that and let them into my home and let them into my life. That just doesn't make any sense to me. If it was like a friend, right? And they were doing the same things certain family members were doing, people would tell me to unfriend that person immediately. But because it's family, it's okay. So I was criticized for that as well. Like, and I'm still to this day, I'm criticized about it, but I stand 10 toes down that like, that's just how I feel. Living in this kind of environment made me just hyper vigilant of like myself and how others view me and whether or not like I'm making people upset. And it created like this cycle of socially interacting with someone, thinking it's fine, and then going home and harping on whether or not I pissed this person off. Or did I say something wrong? Like, did I do something? And then feeling like embarrassed over things I didn't even need to be embarrassed over. Now, let's talk about my first anxiety or panic attack. And I've had 2 anxiety or panic attacks in my life, and I never want to deal with it again. But my first panic attack was in my sophomore year of college. There was just a lot going on. College was fine, but personally, in the personal relationships that I had, like with my family and my friends, I felt like people were like just making these very terrible decisions and they were putting themselves in situations that would hurt them. And I didn't want to see my family and the people I care about hurt. At that time, it's like I had a very hard time. Mind you, I was like 18, 19. I had a hard time understanding and realizing that you just don't have control over people. They're just going to do what they want to do and you just have to deal with it. And it all like came to a head. I was like napping in my dorm and then I got up, like shot up. I felt like I was going to die. Like, and you know, which is like the craziest thing ever because no one knows, well, let me not say that. But most people don't know what it feels like to almost die or be about to die. I've never died before. I don't have any experience with death to myself. So the fact that my brain was so convinced that I was going to die was like the craziest experience. I ended up getting dressed and it was like late at night too, walking all the way to like a park and calling my family member, and they tried to help. And eventually I did calm down, but that is when I realized I was like, yo, I need to chill. Like I never want to experience that again. I need to chill. And for the most part, from sophomore year till after graduation, I did not experience another panic attack. So I didn't feel like my anxiety was that bad because I felt like, okay, well, I believed for the longest time, I was like, overall, I'm just an anxious person. You know, one anxiety or panic attack, that's, you know, nothing needs to be done about that. So I didn't necessarily go to talk to anybody. I didn't, or maybe I did. I think I did. And then I got put in group therapy and that made me even more anxious. So I ended up stopping that. But point is, I did try to talk to someone, but I didn't think it was bad. It was actually still to that point very manageable in comparison to my daily life. So after that, you know, moved to Michigan in 2019. Y'all all know what happened in 2020, COVID. And that's when my anxiety started to increase even more from just having one singular panic attack and overall just being a nervous and anxious person to being nervous about Sean dying. I also worked this job. I worked customer service at a travel place. Customer service is not a joke. So that was on my mind. And then I was also processing what happened to me in high school and the rest of my childhood. So it was a lot to do and a lot going on at once. And I would wake up every day crying. And a lot of those crying episodes were linked directly to that job. So I can't really say it was it had to do with things. Well, I guess it does have to do with anxiety because I was anxious to get on the phone. So I would just cry. And those weren't panic attacks Now that I think about it, those might just be like mild panic attacks. It didn't feel as bad as what happened in sophomore year, so I don't think I want to classify it as that, but that was a lot. Eventually I did leave the job. The world started opening up and I started interacting with humans in person, and it was cool for a minute. But I think me being in quarantine for so long, even though I'm like this introverted homebody, it was still a little bit like jarring to like go from not speaking to anybody but Sean to having to interact with all of these people in person. So I did start to develop a little bit more symptoms of social anxiety, but still, again, still very, very manageable. What ended up happening was that I started to harp and ruminate on social interactions that happened either at work or at the store, wherever. I started to replay those in my head, and I thought, oh, it's not really that bad. Like, there's memes on the internet about how, you wake up at 3 a.m. and replay a social interaction, or you think about something that happened 7 years ago. So I didn't think it was really that serious, but it was a little bit like damaging, because I'm like, it's not that serious. Like, how is my brain basically replaying something over in my head that I don't want to replay? Like, I don't want to do this. This is like, this whole thing is happening without my consent. So those are the signs that I started to notice, but it wasn't happening all the time. It was like here and there where I would randomly just start to ruminate. At that time, I also started seeing like a doctor, and they have the mental health questionnaire, like a regular PCP, like a primary care provider, and they had like a mental health questionnaire, which asks questions about like anxiety. And I did rate anxiety high at that time because I was anxious and I was being truthful. And the first thing they offered to me was anxiety medication, and I was thrown back. I was thrown aback. I was taken aback. Oh my God, throwing it back. Who am I? I was taken aback because I was like, well, they didn't offer like any counseling. They didn't offer for me to do anything else, like alternatives. It was like straight to medication, and that put a bad taste in my mouth about anxiety medication. I was like, no. Like, I felt almost like offended that she even asked. I tried other methods to try to calm down my anxiety, even though it wasn't happening as often as, But then eventually, even though it wasn't that bad some years ago, recently it started to become worse. So I think what's been going on is that my anxiety like started off as like a little small thing, and then as the years went on, it started to like increase and increase and increase and increase. And because I never acknowledged or addressed it, worked through it, it basically like blew up into a thing where every single night I was ruminating. I could not sleep. Anytime the world was quiet enough for my thoughts for me to hear like my actual thoughts, they would always be negative. And it was never anything like, I guess it was about me, but it wasn't anything negative. Like, it wasn't like, oh, you're ugly and you're stupid. It was more of like, oh, is this person mad at me? Oh, like, I can't believe I said this thing. I can't believe I interacted with this person this way. And it was constant. It was constant. It was constant. It was constant. And as soon as it started to affect my sleep, which was very recent, like this year in 2025, that's when I decided that I need to do something about it. But I didn't do anything about it immediately. Okay, I will say, like, I was still a little bit in denial. What ended up happening is that I had an interaction at work that was so frustrating. It was a situation with another colleague, and I basically asked this colleague to not interrupt me while I'm speaking. I said it's rude to interrupt. I felt very disrespected, and I show you respect by not interrupting you while you're speaking. And this person kind of made me feel very dumb for thinking interrupting others is rude and disrespectful. I felt a little gaslit, if I'm being honest. I don't like to use that word either, but I did feel a little gaslit. That put me into an entire spiral. There was a lot of other things going on at work this year that kind of's been really bothering me and really making me anxious, but that really like upset me to no other, because I felt so dumb. Like, I was like, I'm trying to stand up for myself. I'm trying to have like an adult conversation. Not only did you like make me look dumb in front of my peers, but then when I try to talk to you, I feel even dumber for even bringing this up. So of course that night I did not sleep, and that is what that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, that's it. I'm done allowing these people to basically run my life because, they make a comment, or I'm so worried about pleasing someone. I'm so worried about offending someone. I'm so worried about being judged. I'm so worried about other people that I cannot even sleep. That is nuts. That is nuts to me and unacceptable. I started doing my research. On anti-anxiety medication, and I decided whatever medication I go on, I want it to be the mildest. I want it to be the lowest dose because I was afraid of side effects. I've heard horror stories about anxiety medication and antidepressants. I knew people that were on antidepressants and nothing bad ever happened to them, but for some reason, I was just terrified and I didn't want to do it. But I also knew that the methods that I've tried before, I've tried exercising, I've tried breathing, I've tried distractions, I've tried talking it out. And there's something going on in here that just doesn't allow those methods to work. And it's very hard for someone that doesn't have anxiety. For example, my husband, Sean, he genuinely thought, and not mad at him, Sean is the love of my life. I appreciate all the support that he's ever given me through this journey, but he also thought that this was just something that he was a little bit against the anti-anxiety medication because he thought that this was something that I can just exercise out or breathe out or think out, but my brain just would not let me. It's very hard to describe it to someone that doesn't have anxiety. My brain would not let me. If I had the choice to not do the things that my brain is doing, I would do it. You know what I mean? I'm not choosing to be anxious. I'm not choosing to not sleep. I'm not choosing to be worried about what other people think about me. I'm not choosing to do that. I just want to be quiet. I want to mind my business. I want to do my job. I want to come home. I want a vacation. But my brain just was not allowing it. So I knew I have to do something about it. Got another appointment with my primary care provider. I didn't even wait for my annual. I was like, I just need to do something now. Spoke with her. I was nervous that she wasn't going to take any of my concerns seriously. I was nervous that she was going to say you don't need anxiety medication, but she ended up hearing me out, prescribed me Zoloft, 25 milligrams. And the plan was that we're going to do this for a year and a half. And the goal is for you to get off of Zoloft while also working towards why you're anxious in the first place. So although I like that plan, I like that this is not a forever thing, it does make me nervous because on my Zoloft now, my brain is so quiet. I didn't realize how quiet things are. I didn't realize how quiet my office was. I didn't realize how quiet outside is because there was always almost TV static going on in my head. There was constant thoughts. I remember one time Sean, this was a couple years ago, Sean was just sitting one day. I don't know where we were at. And I asked him what are you thinking about? And he just straight up said nothing. I thought that was ridiculous. How can you just not think about anything? Because to me, in my brain, it's always going. It doesn't stop. But I didn't realize that's not normal. There are times where your brain can just be blank. I didn't have that situation until I started Zoloft. So let's talk about Zoloft and the experience. I want to touch on side effects. The first week of Zoloft, I had to take half a pill. I don't know if I said that already. It's been 21 minutes. I'd start with a half a pill. Took that for the first week, and then the second week I went into a full pill. The first week was not that bad. Honestly, that first dose, my brain was completely mute. I don't know if it was a placebo. I don't know if the medication was actually working. I have no idea, but my brain was so quiet that night, and I was so at peace. I could actually sleep. I'm about to fall asleep right now, thinking about how peaceful it was. It was just such a nice sleep. In the middle of the night, I did feel I was oh my God, this is wearing off because all those thoughts kind of just literally rushed back. But I was luckily able to still fall back asleep, calm down, and continue the journey. Ever since then, that's exactly how the experience has been. Very quiet, my brain is very quiet. I feel even though I still have the same amount of time in a day that I did before I was on anti-anxiety medication, I feel my brain almost processes things slower and it gives me time to think, I guess. For example, I am very open to constructive criticism, but I'm not going to sit here and lie and say it doesn't hurt my feelings, right? There were times where I was in a meeting, maybe my annual review, and I didn't get a good one. And although in my head, I'm they're doing this to improve my performance, I knew what was coming. I knew what was going on when I came into it. I know I'm not a perfect person. That would completely put me in a terrible mood. With my Zoloft, it's almost I'm able to detach what people are saying in comparison to like who I am as a person. Does that make sense? So like another example, after I started taking my anxiety medication, I had a conversation with my manager. I don't remember what he was upset about, but he was upset about something. And I ended up, I thought like if this was me before anxiety medication, I probably would have been very upset. I probably would have reacted, but I was able to like process what he was saying and understand that this isn't a personal attack against me. He just wants whatever is broken fixed. Whether I do it, whether somebody else does it, he just wants it fixed. So Zoloft kind of just gives me like the processing time to understand whether or not something is like serious or not that serious, or if something's worth my energy or not my energy, versus before I was just like constantly reacting. And I was probably constantly reacting because I couldn't fucking think, because my brain was constantly filled with just thoughts in general. Side effects. So there are some side effects to Zoloft. At least side effects that I've experienced have been sweating. I was already a sweaty person, and when I went to go look it up before I started filming the second attempt of this video, that is like a symptom of like anxiety, because you're nervous. And I was constantly nervous, so I was constantly sweating. With Zoloft, I sweat even more. So that's great. Honestly, not that bad. I just carry antiperspirant wherever I go. I have an antiperspirant here, have an antiperspirant at my office, antiperspirant everywhere, because I know that even though I have natural deodorant too without aluminum, but I know damn well if I wear that natural deodorant, by the time I get from my house to the office, I've already sweated it out. Don't ask me why, it just happens. Another thing that is going on is that I am peeing so frequently, it is ridiculous. Now, I am trying to keep myself hydrated, especially during the summer, because I heard that SSRIs will basically makes your tolerance to heat low. So it's like, I don't want to pass out from dehydration, so I'm constantly drinking water. I drink at least 80 ounces of water a day. And it could be that I'm drinking so much water, but I remember just a couple days ago, because I was convinced, I was like, there's no way that the Zoloft is making me pee so much. Months after the fact I started taking it. But I drank like 8 ounces of water before bed, and it's like 7 o'clock. I go to bed at like 10, 11. I thought by the time it's time for me to go to bed, this should be out of my system. No. That's not what happens. It's constantly going. I have to be so careful with how much water I drink before bed, because if not, I will be up and down, up and down, up and down all night. Another thing that I've noticed, which I don't know if it's true because I'm sleeping when it happens, but I feel like I'm grinding my teeth. I don't know if I'm genuinely grinding my teeth or I've just convinced myself that I am. I do have a dentist appointment in November, so I guess we'll find out. But those are mainly the side effects that I can think of. My first week of Zoloft, I did have one singular day where I did not have any motivation to do anything. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And that day, Sean had to stay home because, of course, it would conveniently happen on a Monday morning. Sean stayed home because he was worried about me, and I don't blame him. I've never just stayed in bed all day. Like, I literally slept that entire day, and Sean was trying his best, like, let's go outside, let's take a walk, let's get some vitamin D. I wasn't having it. I didn't want to, but that hasn't happened since. That's pretty much, I think those are all the side effects. How has it affected my mood and my relationships? Like I said, it almost gives my brain more time to like process situations rather than being reactive, and it gives my brain more space to think. Hopefully that made sense. Things that would normally get on my nerves or irritate or trigger me, they don't anymore. Like, to me, it's like, it's not that serious. Work, I think, especially if you work full time, work was like a big factor. Things just happen and I'm just like, we'll get it done. It's like, it's not like the end of the world if something at work doesn't go the right way. But before anti-anxiety medication, I was tweaking. I was like, oh my God, it has to get done. Like, now it's just like, I'll get it done when I get it done. I will try my best. All we can do is try our best, and that's it. Overall, I am happier and less anxious. Zoloft isn't a cure for anxiety. To me, and this is how my friend described it, it's like, rather than having an ocean of anxiety, it's a puddle. So it's way more manageable. Just like last week, I got anxious because I made a silly social mistake, and it did take me a little bit of time to kind of process and get over it, but it wasn't like it was affected me all night. It was affecting my sleep. It was just like, well, that was silly. And I moved on. It's not an end all be all. It's not going to solve everything. Like eventually, you know, I'm going to have to get off of it and definitely face head on why I get anxious. For the most part, I'm very happy that I made the decision. I'm just kind of frustrated with myself that I didn't do it sooner. Like I had this idea that something would happen to me or people would judge me or whatever the case may be, that I got in the way of what could have been a more manageable anxiety experience for basically, I don't know, I want to say no reason, but I had my reasons, but they were silly compared to like how I'm feeling now. I wish I would have just done it earlier. I'm not embarrassed about my Zoloft at all. At this point, I'm like, I don't care. This is what I need to do to be well, to be able to handle some of these situations that be going on. What y'all gonna, oh, you're mentally well. Oh, that's like, you know, like how silly is that? Like, what the hell was I even thinking? That is pretty much my experience with Zoloft, my experience with social anxiety. That's all I have for today. Hopefully I go back to edit this video and it's more streamlined and comprehensible. I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, evening, morning. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.